Hello and welcome to this edition of Consciousness Raising Online. Um, I'm going to jump right into this, and this will probably be maybe 30 minutes. But what I want to deal with today, and the reason why I call it Black People and White Voices, is that there are actually a lot of TV shows, animated TV shows, that have Black people in it, Black people characters, but the voices are white people. And so I was like, wait a minute, where did this stuff come from? But then I realized it's been a long history of it, before animation even. But what I want to do is talk about some of the animated TV shows that have white voices. And a lot of times the viewers have no idea. And that's especially important for children because folks can say, well, um, what does it matter? It matters because if a white person is doing the voice of what is supposedly a black character, a black person character, um, they give the impression that this is how that black person would actually talk. And that means that either the white person has to pretend like they're talking black, they either have to act like they're talking black, or they would come across as a white person's voice on an obviously black character. It may not make a difference because there are black people who sound like, quote, as some people said, they sound like white. That's not necessarily true. It's just that some black people have very clear, distinctive voices, and they talk very distinctively. And they may not in certain arenas use black slang or ebonics. Uh, most of us black adults, we know how to get on the phone and sound white. Okay, we call it uh what's the word we use? Anyway, I'll come back to that, but you all know what I'm talking about. That Now, what is it that makes a voice sound white? Well, it can sound white to white people and it can sound white to black people. But now, most black people can tell when a black person is sounding white. If I got to explain it to you, I ain't gonna do it. Let's go back to the 90s. Going back to Nickelodeon, there was a show called Rocket Power. And Rocket Power had what was at the time they were saying it was the first black girl tomboy. Her name was Regina Rocket, nicknamed Reggie Rocket. Okay. Now, in that show, Rocket Power, and you see a graphic here, that's a graphic of Regina Reggie Rocket. And her brother was on the show. Her brother's name was Otto. And so supposedly there was some mystery as to their race. Her father, Raimundo, was white and Anglo Polynesian. Her late mother, Danielle, was significantly darker skinned, but her ethnicity was never stated. So most viewers, Reggie or Regina was interpreted as being black or biracial due to her and her brother's complexion, which of course they were both darker than the rest of the characters in the show. But now her voice was uh, a white girl by the name of Alex. Isn't that interesting? Her name was Alex, and I didn't realize it until I was doing the research. I thought Alex was a guy, but no, that was I guess it's short for Alexandria. Okay, but anyway, that was going back to the 90s. And again, it's important because again, the character uh, Regina Rocket, whose nickname was Reggie Rocket, was supposed to be a black tomboy. Okay, we don't use the word tomboy anymore, but when I was growing up, the word tomboy was a girl who did a lot of boy things. Uh, we didn't distinguish in terms of their acting like a boy. They did boy things, climb trees and whatever. Uh, but if it was a girl and she acted like a boy, then that was more towards being like what we call today like a transgender, I guess. Um, just like if it was a boy and he did girl things, uh, we called him a sissy, okay? But if he acted like a girl, well, what do we call him? Oh, we can't call him that anymore, okay? But now that's all to date. All of that's tied up in that gender stuff, transgender and this, that, and other, queer, things like that. So I guess Reggie Rocket would have been today would be seen as, I guess, transgender. They wouldn't call her a tomboy. In fact, I need to ask some younger people, what do they call what we call a tomboy? What do they call them? Now, there's a long running show on Fox called Family Guy. And on Family Guy, there was a character named Cleveland Brown, who is the most prominent black guy in the show. Uh, the white dominated town called, what was it, Quahog, Quahog, whatever. Um, so now, a white actor by the name of Mike Henry was the voice of Cleveland Brown. Now, they have since spun off the show to his own show called The Cleveland Show. And Mike Henry is still the voice. So this is a white guy doing the voice of specifically a black man. Okay? Now, here's what's very interesting to me. Cleveland Brown was married to Loretta Brown. And I take it back. I was wrong. The the voice of Loretta Brown, Cleveland Brown's wife, that was Alex. In fact, that's her. Her name is Alex Borstein. You see her graphic in a minute. Okay, that's her there, Alex Borstein. She was the voice of the ex-wife of Cleveland Brown. Now this is where it gets deep. She's also the mother of Cleveland Brown Jr. Um, Now, Loretta Brown liked cricket, the game cricket, and the television program Friends. Now, early on in the show, she didn't have a lot of lines, but she treated Cleveland terrible and cheats on him among with among others Glenn Quagmire, that's him there, and this caused them to divorce. Um, Now they had an episode called Love Blactually, and in that show it was revealed that Loretta had she regretted her actions and wanted Cleveland back, but he refused her, and she took Cleveland's house in the divorce and puts it up for sale, but still apparently living there months later. In the Cleveland Show episode Gone with the Wind, Loretta dies at the age of 44 in an accident when Peter drops a brontosaurus skeleton, which Brian had dug up from the Griffin family's yard, and I guess that's from Family Guy, and drops it on her house. And She goes through the same bathtub gag that Cleveland went through in another show, but she doesn't survive. She dies. Quagmire ends up driving her body down to Stool Bend for her funeral. It's also revealed in this episode that according to Peter Griffin, that's the guy on Family Guy, that she also cheated on Cleveland with Mayor Adam West, that of course that's Batman, Ollie Williams, I don't even know who that is, Frank Sinatra Jr., and the greased up deaf guy. So my point is that they made Cleveland's first wife, who's obviously black, as you can see in this graphic. She's voiced by a white woman, but they made her a cheater. She was cheating on him with everybody, every man in the neighborhood. And I'm like, what the heck? And then they killed her off. Okay? Now, I never watched the Cleveland show, and I only watched Family Guy a few times. I take it back. I did watch the Cleveland show once or twice because I wanted to see how this was coming across with this white guy doing the voice. At that time, I didn't know his wife, Loretta, was being voiced by this white girl, Alex Borstein. So now here's a whole show where both the lead characters, black people, are being voiced by white voices. Okay? And then they made her just a tramp. Made her a tramp. I'm like, wow. All right, let me move on here. Now, on The Simpsons, and they didn't have a lot of black characters, but one of them was a guy named Carlton Carlson. He was always called Urban Lenny. I don't know what that's about. And this is in the fictional world of Springfield. His voice was always that of Hank Azaria, who also did the voice of Apu, the South Asian character. And there was a big controversy. In fact, it was a controversy about him doing the voice of this South Asian character. And I guess when they say South Asian, I guess he's supposed to be Indian. But they never had a problem with him doing the voice of Carlton Carlson or Urban Lenny. Now, even the way they drew this character makes him look like he's silly or stupid. The eyeballs and then the mouth poked out, and then Hank Azaria doing the voice. You see what I'm talking about? This is very insidious stuff. The Simpsons, that wasn't the only one on The Simpsons. There was also Dr. Julius Hibbert on The Simpsons. He was a doctor who always had lollipops or whatever. But now he was voiced by a white guy, and here's the deal: he did him purposely in a kind of Bill Cosby type voice. Ain't that some stuff? All right. Then you had there's a show called Bob's Burgers. On Bob's Burgers, this was deep. There was a character named Marshmallow. Now, Marshmallow was one of the few black LGBTQIA representations on television. Marshmallow. Now, let me sort this out. LGBTQIA. Okay, L, that's lesbian. G, that's, what would G be? I don't know. B is bisexual. T is transgender. Q is queer. Oh, wait, B might be binary. I don't know what that is. And A is what? I don't know. Asexual. Anyway, this character, Marshmallow, was just a totally weird kind of character. Okay. Uh, and I never realized, and I think I watched Bob Burgers once or twice. I didn't know what Marshmallow was supposed to be. But anyway, this character Marshmallow, his voice, his or her voice, was done by David Herman, who was a heterosexual male, white heterosexual male. That's him there, to do her character, and that apparently was a little bit of a controversy too. Uh, this is some weird stuff when you stop and think about it. Here's one that really got me. Um, this was on a show called uh, Big Mouth was the name of the show, and there was a character named Missy Foreman Dash Greenwald, the only black character in the show, Big Mouth. But now Missy Foreman Greenwald was portrayed as super smart, adorable, and exploring her sexuality in a healthy, open way that was supposed to epitomize carefree black girl. What the heck was that about? Now she's obviously a little girl, right? So smart, adorable, and exploring her sexuality in a healthy, open way. What does that mean? And then she was supposed to epitomize carefree black girl, and she was voiced by the white actress named Jenny Slate. You see why this is bothering me? All these different black people, characters, being voiced by white actors and actresses, and adding whatever, I don't even know how many of them have black writers. So we don't know who was putting words in their mouths, but we know that the voices were uh, that of white people. And hey, what can I say? But now I have to go back in history because this is not the first time we've had white voices on black people. I'm gonna go back a bit, and hopefully this will get to stay in this recording because I have to go back basically to back way back. In 1926, there was a two-man comedy series called Sam and Henry. It actually started in Chicago on WGN's radio station. 2 years later, they changed the name of the show to Amos and Andy, and it became one of the most popular radio programs in American history. The two creators of the show and the stars of the radio program, Freeman Gosden and Charles Correll, were both white. There you see them in blackface. Okay? They played two black men from the Deep South who moved to Chicago to seek their fortunes. Now, during that time, of course, white actors performing in blackface, it had been a part of American tradition for over 100 years. They were both vaudeville performers, and they were doing a Chicago comedy act in blackface when an employee at the Chicago Tribune, that's one of the major papers that's still around, suggested that they create a radio show. So when Sam and Henry debuted in January 1926, it became an immediate hit. And in 1928, they took their show to another station, WMAQ, which was actually owned by another newspaper called the Chicago Daily News. Now, once they got over there, they found out that WGN owned the right to the characters' names. And so that's why they changed the names to Amos and Andy. And with the news station, they had the right to syndicate the program. And so it exploded. Now, that show ran on the radio for 22 years, Amos and Andy, and it became the highest rated comedy in radio history. At one point, it had more than 40 million listeners. Okay? You need to understand this because those were two white guys doing Amos and Andy, two black guys, for 22 years on the radio. Now, I'm going to let you hear a little bit of what that sounded like when the two white guys were doing Amos and Andy. Okay? Check this out.
What do you want to see me about, Kingfish?
Brother Andy, I is working for an insurance company. Now, tell me this, what is your burial plan?
Excuse me for protruding, but what is that again?
Brother Andy, I got a burial policy here that takes care of all the arrangements for the departed at the time of sorrow. Coffin, flowers, 2 coaches, and many other things that you enjoy. And it's your duty to have one of these policies for protection. This is a great policy.
What kind of policy is it?
A burial policy. The slogan of our burial policy is, be covered when you is covered.
Yeah, tell me this, what kind of coffin comes with the policy?
The coffins is the new coffins is beautiful. They make your mouth water. They really do, yeah. I just seen one of the new models. It's very much 42. It's a little streamlined. Got chrome handles this year. 4, not handles.
4? I thought there was...
Well, we figure that's bad, brother. We figure that's close friends. That's going to leave 2 of them empty there. You know, going to look
Yeah.
not only that, but if you put it on the side and they're walking around in the mud, they're going to step on each other's heels and pull the rubbers off out there and everything.
Yeah, that'd sure be a mess, all right. Might put a damper.
Oh, here it is. Here. Okay. Sorry. Now remember, that was the two white guys doing a radio show, Amos and Andy, for 22 years. Okay. Now, 1951, they took it to television, but the two white guys couldn't do the blackface on TV because by now wasn't doing no blackface on TV. So Alvin Childress and Spencer Williams took over for Gosden and Carell, and it was the first TV series to have an all-black cast, and it was the only one of its kind for the next 20 years. 20 years. So that made it 1970, 71. The NAACP and some other organizations, they criticized both the radio show and the TV versions because they said they promoted racial stereotypes, and they were canceled in 1953. Okay, now wait, let me explain that because the show started on TV in 1951. It got canceled in 53. That's not right. It had to be 63, but they kept on running the show. Yeah, it had to be around 63. No, I watched it. Yeah, I did. I watched it as a child, and it was one of the most funniest TV shows of all time. Alvin Childress played Amos. Spencer Williams Jr. played Andy. But here's what most people don't realize. There was a character called Kingfish that was played by Tim Moore. Most people thought that Amos and Andy were uh, Kingfish and Spencer Williams Jr., Andy. Uh, but Alvin Childress, who played a cab driver, he was Amos. Okay? Kingfish was like the corrupt guy. Now I'm going to play a little bit of Amos and Andy, the TV show. And I want you to check this out because you're going to see that the character who's the cab driver, that was Amos. But Kingfish was like the big star of the show. In the radio version you just heard, Kingfish was trying to sell Andy some insurance. Okay? And that's what the show revolved around. Kingfish was always trying to beat out Andy out of stuff, out of his money. And by the way, you keep seeing a character, Kingfish, with his wife, Sapphire. And, you know, that was one of the stereotypes, that Sapphire was like always on his case. And, you know, that was like Sapphire was this character. Look at her. Look at her. But now here's the thing, and I want you to watch this little piece I got that I'm going to show you. Because here's the deal. If black people were watching Amos and Andy, it was funny as heck to us if it was just black people. But what happened was, if you had white people watching Amos and Andy, it was funny, but they laughed at different things than black people did. In fact, white people laughed at the black people. They didn't laugh at the jokes. They laughed at the black people. And so if you had a mixed crowd, black and white, oh, it'd be some hostile stuff up in there because the black people get hostile over the white people in terms of what they were laughing at. Yeah, that stuff wasn't funny. Now watch a little segment of it, and you'll see what I'm talking about.
Did you get that thing?
You remember that convertible sports car the Kingfish wanted to sell me for $50 sight unseen?
Yeah.
Well, this is the sight. Been better if I'd have unseen it.
Andy, you ought to know better than buy anything from the Kingfish. He always manages to gyp you.
Yeah, this is the straw that bring the camel back. I'm going to tear that Kingfish limb from limb.
Now, just a second, Andy. Ain't no need for violence. Now, I'll go in there with you, and we'll tell the Kingfish he just got to give you your $50 back.
Come on.
Oh, yeah. I got the $50 right here in my pocket.
Well, I'm so glad to hear it. I've got to get a new dress before Phoebe Harris arrives in town.
Oh, that's that old girl friend you told me about, the one who become a famous stage actress.
That's right, George. I want to impress her, so don't let anything happen to that money because I want that dress.
Don't worry about a thing, honey. I'll be home with the money in a little while. Goodbye.
Okay, Kingfish, give me back my $50.
What $50?
The $50 you done snookered me out of for that old beat-up jalopy. Now you give it back.
Calm down, Andy. Kingfish, give Andy back his money.
Now, look, Amos, this was a legitimate deal. Andy said he wanted a convertible automobile, and it's as represented. It's convertible, and it's an automobile.
Now, look, Kingfish, it was a crooked deal, and you know it. Now, either give Andy his money back, or I'm going to advise him to go see a lawyer.
Ooh, unhappy with the car, huh?
Okay, that was a little sample of Amos and Andy, the TV show. And like I said, it was funny as heck. It was just black people. But we didn't like it when the white people got involved. Because they didn't laugh at the same thing we laughed at. But those three, Alvin Childress, who played Amos, that was the cab driver. He was Amos. Tim Moore was Kingfish, and Spencer Williams Jr. played Andy. They were three of the best comics of all time in that show, Amos and Andy. But remember, it went 22 years on the radio with the two white guys playing them. Okay? Now, if you want to, you might back it up and listen to the white guys again compared to the black folks, because there was a difference. Now, there's a new show apparently on Netflix called Spy Kids. And it's got a black character on there. And of course, they've signed a young white dude to play this black boy on the TV show, on this animated show called Spy Kids. Now it's interesting because it's, he was questioned. Some black folks say, hey, what's the deal? This is 2019, right? Well, TMZ caught up with the kid and asked him what, his thoughts about that, with the black folks being upset about it. And I want you to listen to what he says. Okay?
You said you're voicing your first black character.
I'm voicing my first black character.
Are you worried about the black community getting mad at you for being black and
Actually,
doing a black character?
you know what? If they want, they can say whatever. I have thought about that, but also I have a track with Dub C right now. I have a track with Snoop coming out. I actually come from like an urban background. I come from I've lived in motels. People to what I am at now. What I'm trying to say is I relate to the urban community, okay? You guys all on me right now, which is cool. You know what? Like I said earlier, I sponsor black kids. I work with Day One. I work with Dub C. I work with Snoop. I think right now, honestly, social media is dividing us. It's dividing us. I grew up on Chris Rock, Chris Tucker, people making fun of race. It's a comedy. Now these people can't even do college tours because it's such an issue. I think again, to bring it back, it's about the love, it's about supporting each other, about community. And so if people want to make it like a black and a white thing, then it's gonna be that. Yo, I want to step foot in that club, let's act a nay-nay. Know what I'm talking about? Yeah. You know what I mean? So it's something like that. It's very much, you're like, oh, is that cultural appropriate? And I get that. Honestly, if there was someone more suited for the role, then yes. But I will say this, it's all love, much love. You guys rock. For me, people can say whatever, but I'm a product of the 80s, like product in the ladies. No maybes about it, can't even doubt it. I freestyle, pro style. Meanwhile, lock it in the file on my brain, home man. Yeah, shit, that cat's so insane, cuz I'm talking about when I walk in the boat on a freestyle, huh?
Yeah, okay. That's one of them deals where, there's a white boy, see, this is the thing about white privilege. White privilege says, as a white person, I can do whatever I want. And what do you say? I lived in motels. I'm urban. Then he tried to, I'm doing a cut with Snoop, and some of my best friends are black kind of stuff. But it just continues the same practice of white people deciding for everybody else. And they can decide to play black characters, Asian characters, Indian characters. It don't matter. They can be whoever they want. And there's folks that say, well, black people play white characters. Here's the deal. When a white character ends up with a black person playing that person, y'all see what happens? It happened with what was the name of that? Well, it's been several cases where stories with black people playing the playing the white, historically white character is what it is. Okay? And white people have a fit. Is something getting ready to come out now? Oh, The Little Mermaid. It's going to have a black girl doing the voice of the Little Mermaid or something. And so you have people having fits. White girls, white women having a fit over a fictional character. See, that's what kills me is these are fictional characters that they end up having a fit over. Well, that character, the Little Mermaid was always white with red hair, so she can't be black. You know, and you go back through the history, and they have a fit every time because they want to decide who we can play, but we don't get to decide who plays us. Okay. Now, if you see some other situations like this, then feel free to comment. But let's check this out. This should not be happening in this day and age where white people can do our voices of our characters with impunity, and especially if they're also writing the dialogue, because that's nothing but blackface in voice. Okay, that's all that is. All right, I shall close out now, and as always, I say no justice, no peace, no love. KNOW.